How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining us today. I'm Carlos, one of your hosts of the Bring on the Blitz podcast, and I'm joined here with Rios. How's it going, Rios?
It's a sad day to see in the football, but baseball's right around the corner.
There you go. Papi, how's it going, bud?
Good. I gotta say, I was expecting the intro to play and stuff.
Wrong show.
Yeah, no. I was like, oh, we're just starting. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Now, but one thing I did learn yesterday, Kendrick Lamar really inspired me to be more of a generational hater. Role.
All right.
Oh man,
Hey,
the hate runs deep.
Hate runs deep. All right, man. We're gonna be talking about some Super Bowl stuff. Maybe getting to see what Nick Caley brings over to the Texans, and that's about it. All right. All this and more after the intro. Hit it. All right, guys. So
that feels a little bit better.
You need
music, and then it's like, yeah.
There you go. All right, so Chiefs played the Eagles.
You good, bro? Like,
Chiefs played the Eagles, and the final score was 40-22.
Yeah.
Did you guys, really quick? I'll start off with Papi on this one. Did you guys expect it to be that much of a difference, Papi? What do you think?
Yes and no, right? Like, all things considered, I knew going in there that the Eagles were in the better form going into the game.
Mm-hmm.
We know how the Chiefs have not looked great all season long, but somehow they still managed to win. Whether it's Mahomes making plays out of nothing or the refs doing what the refs do. Yeah, exactly. Rios got the right idea. But which has been the story all season. But it's the Super Bowl, right? It's the playoffs. We know Mahomes turns into a different person when it comes to that. So going into this game, I was like, it's either going to be either the Eagles are going to run away with it, or it's going to be like a close encounter, kind of like 2 years ago, and then the Chiefs are going to win on a field goal or like a one possession type of game. But like 2 quarters into it, I was just like, I don't feel like I should be watching this game. It feels like somebody's being to death, and I'm just here expectating it.
Just watching it.
I felt like when going in, I was like, you know what? Well, the Chiefs this whole season have kept games pretty close, and when that happens, 1-score games, and then when that happens, they just come back and end up beating teams like that. We saw it throughout the entire season, and this one felt different. I thought, maybe if the Eagles get a big early lead and it's a comfortable lead too, then there's a chance, because now the Chiefs basically played catch up, right, most of the season. What if the catch up this time is such a big margin that it's hard for them to catch up, and that's exactly what they did. The Eagles took advantage of it without using Saquon Barkley as much. They did it through the air, and so that was interesting to see, because it's like I think the Chiefs' plan going in was, let's take out Saquon Barkley. That's their guy. Let's see what they can do in the air. And honestly, the Eagles lived up to the expectation. Jalen Hurts did a solid job at just getting through that Chiefs defense. So, Rios, what are your thoughts on that, bro?
Yeah, speaking of Jalen Hurts, man, shout out to Channel View's Finest. Made all of us proud. One thing about the Houstonians, we're gonna make it about us, no matter what the occasion is.
Yeah, yes. You got that right.
No, but like you had mentioned, the Chiefs' game plan on defense was to take out Saquon Barkley. He was essentially neutralizing the first half. He was not able to get anything going. He was averaging less than 2 yards per carry at one point. But they didn't account for Jalen Hurts having the game of his life. In their last Super Bowl matchup, Jalen Hurts, if the Eagles would have won that game, he would have been MVP of that one also, because he was the best player on the field that day. It's just, some unfortunate incidents occurred towards the end of the game that cost the Eagles the game the first time. But this time around, they put them away early. This game was over, honestly, after the first quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Jalen outplayed Mahomes for the second time in the Super Bowl. This time, everything went on his favor, thankfully. And it was it was a story of like different. It was like different things all at once, right? Like you said, the Chiefs neutralized Saquon Barkley, but Jalen had a very efficient game through the air, and I mean he ran the ball as well. Like Jalen was very calculated on the decisions they were making, and the Chiefs defense, as good as they have been, they just couldn't do both things at once, right? They couldn't handle Saquon and then Jalen at the same time. I think 2 years ago, Hurts had a even better game.
Yeah, he had 3 rushing touchdowns.
Good, 3 rushing touchdowns.
And on this one, it was like less about him and just like, let's just get this ball down the field, right? And I feel like Mahomes and the Chiefs in general, I feel like they just played bad. They just had a really bad game.
You know, it was a crazy stat. So in 7 Super Bowl games, Patrick Mahomes, no, not 7, 5 Super Bowl games, excuse me. Mahomes has more interceptions than Tom Brady had in 10 Super Bowl games.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
I mean, 3 of them came in this game alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just
he had 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in his Super Bowl career. And Brady, I mean, I think they put the GOAT conversation to bed for a good while at this point because he looked absolutely terrible yesterday.
Yeah, the thing with Mahomes is that even before the game got out of hand, like he was almost handing the game to the Eagles.
Yeah.
You know, with the interceptions, giving them like great field position, and you know, like you put the Eagles in the red zone, they have so many options, and they haven't been able to stop either, like neutralize everything. Like the Eagles just took advantage of every single opportunity the Chiefs were giving them, and the whole offensive line for the Chiefs, reminiscent of what the Texans offensive line has looked like all year. Like they were giving him no time in the pocket. And even when he was getting out of the pocket, like nobody was ever open. He's either having to throw the ball away or, you know, throw like a Hail Mary pass. And then more often than not, it was either getting swatted out or intercepted.
So really quick, Vic Fangio's defense, they played zone coverage on all but like 2 dropbacks, right? They specifically the cover for 59.5, which is the 3rd highest rate by a defense in games since 2018. Vic Fangio's defense held Mahomes to his 2nd worst performance in his career. So and this was through next gen stats, by the way. That is crazy. That honestly, credit to that Eagles defense, man. Vic Fangio had him playing well against Patrick Mahomes. They knew exactly what they needed to do against Patrick Mahomes, and quite frankly, with the cover 4, I mean, if you, I don't know if you guys heard I'm sorry, D'Amico Ryans mentioned that before, that was one way to beat that was the way to beat the Chiefs. Except, you know, the Texans just couldn't execute it.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers gave the blueprint a few years ago when they in Brady's last Super Bowl game where they completely dominated the Chiefs. It was with the front 4. They didn't blitz in that game, and the Chiefs the Eagles, excuse me, they didn't blitz at all either. There was 0 blitzing. They got pressure with their front 4. And I mean, credit to their GM, like he was built a solid team from top to bottom.
Oh yeah.
But I think that defensive line is probably like the heart of their defense. And then you have some shutdown guys on the corners. Like it's
the D line was exceptional.
It was.
And I think a lot of teams the blueprint on how to, you know, combat the Chiefs. You got to have a strong front 4. You got to be able to get pressure with those front 4. And you also have guys on the outside that can hold their own in man coverage or in zone coverage, you know, depending on the situation. Otherwise, you know, Mahomes is going to find a way to make a play. But if he doesn't have time to, you know, get set in the pocket.
And that was the biggest thing, right? Like a lot of people online were saying like, oh, if this Kansas City team had like actual bona fide wide receivers out there, it would be a different story. But honestly, like Mahomes was.
Dude, you got Xavier Worthy. I'm sorry, you got Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce
was wide open on that 1 3rd down play.
Yeah, they were just giving Mahomes no room for error. And Mahomes, like, they basically said Mahomes has to be perfect today in order to beat us, and he wasn't.
Yeah, he was pressured on 39% of his dropbacks, and that's very reminiscent of what CJ Stroud faced the entire season. His average was 39%. It was a lot higher in some cases, but like, it's just a small example of like what, you know, Stroud had to go through this entire season, and people were, you know, kind of ready to give up on the kid. And you know, when you don't have time to pull
way
the ball,
too early.
Even the best in the game are going to have games like that.
It was after the third quarter. I believe the Chiefs had scored 1 touchdown, and I found out that there was a rule that you can't do onside kicks anymore unless is it the fourth quarter. I
Right.
didn't know that.
Fourth quarter, you
Yeah,
have to have
fourth quarter.
no surprise
Yeah.
onside kicks. Which is,
But I think
honestly, I'm
that's
not a big
dumb.
fan of that.
I think that's dumb. I think that's dumb.
Yeah.
But once they scored that touchdown, like you would think, like I almost thought for a second, oh, maybe the script writing, the script writers are cooking something, or maybe something's going, like maybe they can bring it back, but it was all out of their hands by that point. Like the second half was just waiting for the inevitable, the final whistle. The fact that they did the Gatorade shower
Like
before the
3 minutes
2-minute
before.
warning was like, okay.
I guess I got it in the bag.
Yeah, but it was a recipe for disaster. Like the Chiefs played a horrible game offensively and defensively, and the Eagles were not. I wouldn't say they were like amazing offensively. They were very efficient.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
defensively, the defense stole the show.
It did.
When they said defense wins championships, this is what they mean.
That was a good example of it. A good one too. Like when going back to the Mahomes thing, for 3 quarters, for 3 quarters, they held Mahomes 9 of 18 for 61 yards and 2 interceptions. 3 quarters.
Yeah, he was not on anything yesterday.
Yeah, the receivers weren't able to separate because of that zone coverage, and then the front four was, in his face as soon as he got the ball. Like he had no time to operate in the pocket. And again, like I mentioned before, the Buccaneers had that blueprint. It's just it's hard for a lot of teams to create a front four that has the ability to create pressure without blitzing.
Yeah, and the offensive line didn't do him any favors. I feel like this is not the Mahomes we've known to see in moments like this. And like you said, Carlos, once the game got out of hand, it was over by the second half.
And so with that front four, the Eagles relied on them, and they basically got 16 pressures on Mahomes and sacked him 6 times, which is the most in his game career. 6 sacks, and he got pressured 16 times. That front four is elite.
That sounds like an average CJ Stroud game.
You do gotta be happy for Jalen. Finally getting the big one. I think he's a very good quarterback.
He's very underrated. He doesn't get the credit.
He's underrated.
Very underrated, but honestly, like as far as like team building, this Eagle team is so complete from top to bottom.
I mean, Howard Roseman's a genius. Like, look what he's done in the last few years. You basically stole the best running back in the game from your division rival.
That's the other thing, right? Like if you're Saquon, right? Like is Saquon now like the best free agent in the history of the NFL? Like
not the history, but he
basically like packs his bags, goes to the team down the road,
division rival,
has a career season and
record-setting season,
and then he wins the Super Bowl, like
most rushing yards regular season and postseason, and win the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the Giants are picking the top 5.
Yeah, like I would not like rather. I do not feel bad for Kansas City fans, but I do feel bad for Giants fans, man. Seeing the best player you've had in the last
decade,
basically since Odell left, and you can't build around him, let him go for nothing, and then he goes and wins the Super Bowl after having like the best season of his career is like ridiculous.
I don't know. If I was a Giants fan, that'd have been my 13th reason.
Yeah, I mean it's over at that point.
Like.
And paying Daniel Jones and then let him walk. Now the guy they chose over Saquon is a backup for the Vikings.
So one of the from the Super Bowl, one of the things that caught some attention in the media was Travis Kelce, the way he looked after the game.
During the game, do you see?
And during the game,
but
most likely, the speculation, of course, about possible retirement. What do you guys think? Possibility if Travis Kelce would to retire, the Chiefs can save close to 17 million if he does retire. So put that into perspective. Do you guys think he hangs him up, sticks around for another season? Rios, go first.
Honestly, I think he's probably going to hang it up. I think
so?
Yeah, I think because this whole season he's been a shell of himself, and he's going to be another year older when the season starts again.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, your legacy is pretty much that you're a first ballot Hall of Famer at this point. What do you have left to play for?
He's 35 now, right? He's 35 now. Yeah.
30s. Like, what do you have to play for at this point? You've already won 3 Super Bowl rings. You have multitudes of records for the tight end position in regular season and postseason. Like, what's the point? Like, you're dating a billionaire. Like, retire and enjoy life.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at it like from two different perspectives, right? Like I personally thought that he should have retired last year, right? Retire on a high. You just won the Super Bowl. You had a fantastic season. Hang him up when you're at the top, right? Walk away into the sunset. I understand why he came back though. The possibility of a three-peat was too good to pass up. And with a quarterback like Mahomes, the window is always open. Even with how crappy they played this year, they still made it to the dance, right? So it made sense for him to come back.
I think another parallel is we saw with Tom Brady after he won the Super Bowl. A lot of people speculated he would retire, but he decided to come back for one more season.
Right.
Basically, give up his marriage in the process. He could lose him in the wild card round and get to the LA Rams. Like,
yeah, but then,
I think the difference is like Tom Brady was a quarterback, so obviously they were protecting as much as possible. Kelsey is getting hit at 35, 36 now,
and that's the thing. Like you go back and look at that Tampa Bay team, like Gronk, right? Gronk came out of retirement because Brady was like, "Hey, I got one more in me. Let's run it back, right?
Let's ride."
And so maybe that's the mentality that Kelsey's got. Like, as long as Mahomes is healthy and he's, as good as he is, I could still provide something to this team and maybe get a couple more rings on my way out. But at this point, after not about losing in the Super Bowl, but about the way they lost.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think if they play again today, I don't think it happens again the way it happens.
No, right? I think it happens 10 times out of 10. This Eagles team is just complete.
See, I don't think so. I don't think so because once the game got out of hand, like you could see all the heads go down. Right. These are guys that have won multiple Super Bowls by now. Like, did they care as much as the Eagles? Maybe that's where the difference lies, right?
Well, I don't know. They're playing for a three-peat. They're a chance to make.
Yeah, but the Eagles just want to win. Jalen wants to win. Everybody wants to win for Jalen. Like you saw after the game was over, all the skill position players, the O-line, the D-line, were all going to Jalen like, hey, let him know, bro. What are they going to say now? Like, we appreciate you. We did this for you. You did this for us. Like, the city loves you. We love you. Because Jalen has been one of those guys who's been like underrated, right? When he made it to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, like we were rooting for the guy, right? He's a Houston guy, but it's hard to look past the Mahomes Chiefs legacy and dynasty, right? Like, so it's hard to look past that. So like when they lost, it's like, yeah, you got a bit unlucky with the calls at the end, but you gave it your all and you outplayed Mahomes, right? This one was like the revenge game for them. Like it meant more to them than it meant to the Chiefs. I feel if the Chiefs can easily run this back and make it to the dance one more time. Because if they play, I don't think next year they played worse than they played this year. I do not think so.
They're going to be another year older. They're going to probably lose some pieces in the offseason. And I think another thing that people didn't really take into account is all the scrutiny with the officiating. Like, they're going to be under the magnifying glass. They got a lot of favorable calls.
They don't care. They don't care. We've known this for years.
No, I'm not talking about the Chiefs care. I'm talking about like the NFL officiating crews.
I don't think the media cares either. I don't think the NFL cares either.
Like, we did see a difference in the way the game was officiated. Like, it was actually more. There wasn't a lot of missed calls on either side yesterday. It was actually pretty well officiated.
I mean, except for that first play.
Oh, the first one, yeah, that was like,
yeah, that's when I started like, oh no, we're not doing this already, guys. But if you're Travis Kelce,
even Brady said it was a bad call, but then that's the only one that was really like, one of those.
Here's my thing in the Kelce situation. If he wants to run it back, I don't think next year is going to be worse than this year by any means. So you might as well run it back if you feel like you got one more in you.
Well, when you say that, what do you mean for him personally or for the team? Because I think
Both.
personally, he's going to have a worse season. You can
Both.
see.
I don't think he can have a worse season than he did. I don't think
this is the worst season he's had in his career.
Exactly. This is the worst season he's had in his career. I don't think next year is any worse.
So
I don't see next year as being any worse.
I don't see.
Like, can the Chiefs make it all the way to the Super Bowl? Yes. Will they? That's a different question.
I'm going to agree with Rios on one part here. I don't think they'll run it back because I feel like they are going to lose some pieces to that.
I mean, this is a wake up call for them. Like,
it is.
You can't just put the same guys out there and expect Mahomes
exactly. You guys got it this year.
Yeah.
There was I think they may lose enough pieces where some's gonna have to, I don't think they do it next year. I'm willing to go on a limb and say that I don't think they're gonna do it.
You think next year is gonna be like a rebuilding year?
I think more like it's similar to the Astros. It's going to be a retooling year, and then they'll be possibly back into contention the following
season. I mean, Mahomes is what?
They're going to have to retool.
How old is Mahomes?
They're going to have to change that. They're going to have to change that offense. Honestly, they're not going to just winning these one-score games. Like it's not sustainable.
Yeah, because if you go back to that Super Bowl.
He's 29, Papi.
He's 29. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you go back to a Super Bowl last year and the year before, like, it was the defense that I feel like outplayed the offense for the Chiefs. I feel like the defense was carrying that team a lot. And this time around, they just couldn't. The offense wasn't on anything. The defense couldn't handle everything that the Eagles were throwing at them.
I mean, it's similar to the Texans. Like, the defense was doing its job, but what the offense isn't reciprocating and doing their part.
Yeah, like the defense can't do so much, right? The defense, like, they can put points on the scoreboard.
You can't rely on
it. Yeah, you can't. You really can't put your eggs on that basket.
I will say this about Mahomes this year. His touchdown to interception ratio didn't look so good statistically speaking. I mean, I think he had, if I'm not mistaken, it was 26 to 11, 26 touchdowns this season to 11 interceptions, and so it was here and there, but it was I feel like for Mahomes personally, it was more of a down season. That's not discrediting what he's able to do. I'm not discrediting that, just for the haters in the comment section. I'm not discrediting what he's doing. I'm just saying, statistically speaking, this was more of a like a down season for Patrick Mahomes.
And that's the thing, dude. Like, if this is a down season and you're still making it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Like, it's a down season for Mahomes, but they still made the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, you gotta give credit to their defense. Their defense was, a top 10 unit. They're the reason for a lot of those victories. They kept the scores close, and the offense did just enough to win the games. But when you run to a superior opponent, you can't rely on that model, because you're going to, get what we saw yesterday, where you get the la chancla all night. Like,
so does this mean like the Eagles are just like miles above the rest?
Yeah,
because I would argue Buffalo could have beaten the Chiefs and made this a better game. If they would have gone to the Super Bowl. Or even the Ravens. I feel like Ravens and Eagles match up a little bit better.
Yeah, I think both of those are a little bit better matchups. They just didn't do enough to win in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Okay.
I feel like the Chiefs still got, like, yes, they're gonna have to make moves. I feel like, if Kelsey leaves, $17 million to play with, but does that really make that much of a difference? I'm not sure, depending on who you get. The thing with Mahomes and Kansas City is that they can get the free agents if they really want to. They can get the guys who won a ring, and they know that with Kansas City is probably their best bet. I kind of feel bad for DeAndre Hopkins, because I was like, I mean, if the Chiefs win, at least he gets a ring. I feel like he's one of those guys that, like, deserves one by this point of his career, but it's a shame that he wasn't able to get it.
I would have agreed with you. It wasn't for his comments after the game, because he was complaining about the fishing. I'm like,
he was.
Come on.
I mean, you're like, in the heat of the moment, it's the worst loss in a Super Bowl since, what was that Denver game? When was that? Like 10 years ago? 10
No,
years ago?
It was the worst one since the Buccaneers beat the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs put.
It was with
Tom Brady,
right? Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like we've covered our share bunch for the Super Bowl and the Chiefs next year.
Yeah.
All right.
Congrats to Jalen.
Congrats to the Eagles, man. Yeah. All right. The last part of the segment that I want to move on to is let's talk about Nick Caley a little bit. So he's been called. This is according to Will Kunkel. I think I'm gonna spell his name from Fox Sports. He said that they spoke to a few NFL front office people that described the Texans offensive coordinator Nick Caley in strong positive ways. Quote in quote, Rob, rising star, best tight ends coach in the league, and a great guy overall. Obviously not sure how he'll be. A little bit unsure right now what he's going to be in the play calling, but they have a really good, he has a pretty good reputation of as a guy that's like a hard worker and he's one of those dudes that just won't stop until things get better, like a perfectionist in some cases. That to me that strikes more confidence in a sense that unlike when the Texans had Bobby Slowick, it almost felt like that energy was very lackluster in him whenever you'd see him on the press conferences and how he would address certain situations. Like my biggest take over the season was when he went on record and said, "Oh, most offenses don't adjust," and things like that. And I was kind of like flabbergasted by it. I was like, "What?" I was like, "You see offenses and defenses adjusting all the time. What you mean?" But you could see, but not even that. You could see the result of it on the field, And if things are the way that people in the NFL are talking about Nick Caley, I mean that's a good thing to have. I mean, he's a tight ends coach, so obviously it looks like he's going to be working on an area of concern because again, tight ends, yes, the Texans got Nick Stover. Yes, they have how do you call it? They still have Dalton Schultz. But if he was a tight ends coach, I mean, could we expect before we start going there, your thoughts on Nick Caley first before we start going into maybe positions or whatever? Your thoughts after hearing all the things about him in the NFL. What do you think about Nick Caley? Rios, go for it.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about the hiring. I think he's going to bring a different type of energy than Bobby Slowick brought. He seems more like a leader of men type, like D'Amico is.
Yeah,
and also bringing some of those offensive concepts from the LA Rams. CJ Stroud is on a record several times saying one of his favorite quarterbacks to watch is, and he tries to emulate is Matthew Stafford. And you look at the LA Rams offense, there's not a lot of like superstars. Like they developed their guys really well.
Right.
Cooper Kupp, not real highly regarded coming out of the draft, and he was in the Triple Crown a couple years ago.
Right.
Puka Nacua, what was it, like a 5th round draft pick?
5th round, yeah, it was late. Right.
No one really expected much from him, and he was, up there with CJ Stroud having one of the bbest rookie seasons for a skill position player. Like they developed the players, and if they can incorporate some of that to this Texans offense, because with the Rams, it's a lot of spread, not a whole lot of with the Texans Rams, close, long forming plays. If you watch their games, it's a lot of quick passes, quick game. Spread them out, and a lot of different concepts and a lot of motions as well. I think a graphic where they have motions on almost 58% of their plays. Like this going to be, I think, a breath of fresh air for this offense and rejuvenate this group that 2 years ago they were a top 10 unit, and then they were bottom 10 this past season. So I'm excited to see what kind of changes it's brought to this offense.
Nice. Papi, what is your take on this?
Yeah, no, I gotta say I agree with Rios 100%, man. I feel like, the media calls him a perfectionist. I think that this is what
they need.
The offense needs. I feel like you see with the Rockets, you get a coach like Ime Udoka that comes in and he's a no nonsense like type of guy, like defense first, and we're gonna stick to my game plan and we're gonna win games, and that has changed the culture of the Rockets this last couple of years. And I feel like getting somebody like that, to run the offense with, the level of potential that we know it has, because the year before it was one of the most exciting offenses we had. CJ had like one of the best rookie seasons ever, and with not a lot of weapons, you could argue, right? So the fact that Slowick just couldn't get the best out of those guys and the best out of injuries aside, I feel like that first year the Texans proved that you don't need like every single skill position to be a really big name to put points on the board. I feel like this guy comes in with a different approach, different mentality, energize the guys a little bit more. And after the way the season went offensively. I feel like a lot of these guys, you just wanted something different, right? We know how D'Amico, he's loyal to his guys and everything, but I feel like the Texans, everybody, like the fans, the players, the organization itself, knew that some change needed to be made. And I feel like he's one of those guys who's going to come in and at the very worst, I don't think he'll do worse than how they did this year.
Yeah, after the Texans released Bobby Slowick, they also, I think we sat up here and talked about Strouser, how he just, it felt like he wasn't. I mean, he was set to retire last season also. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much the heart was in there and everything. It just seemed like there was a lot of, like, the energy was not the same from their first season. And Cole Popovich ended up getting promoted for the Texans as a new offensive coordinator. And now you have a Nick Caley, so a fresh set of it's something new and fresh that the Texans are going to get at the offensive line and in the how do you call it, in the offensive as the offensive coordinator. What I'm wondering is, like, now, like I said, there was a down season for Dalton Schultz, but we have seen how good Dalton Schultz could be. So now it's like, if we're addressing the tight end position, now you get to think to yourself, okay, are the Texans going to try it out with Kate Stover in year 2 now, and then the last year that Dalton Schultz has in his contract coming up. Like, what are they going to do with that? Since Nick Caley specialized in basically being the tight ends coach, how are we going to work? How are the Texans going to work with those tight end units? How are they going to use them differently? Was the reason that Dalton Schultz his performance last season was lackluster because of the designs that Bobby Slowick, or was it just Dalton Schultz just age catching up with him, or whatever it was? Now it begs the question. I'm intrigued, and I think that's the best part about this. You're intrigued, you're wondering, you're curious what is going to happen this season with new blood, or new fresh blood out there with the Texans offensive coordinator. So I'm excited, and if you really start seeing, because a lot of things can happen from now until the season starts. So what if they release they release Dalton Schultz, and maybe they draft some guy in the a tight end? There's a pretty decent tight end group coming up for this in the draft. You got Tyler, you said Warren, right? Rios. Yeah, Tyler Warren. Gunner's also in there, and then a guy that put numbers up that I'm writing an article about is Elijah Arroyo from Miami. Like 6'4", 245 pounds, but he was billed at 251 in the Senior Bowl. That guy is something to look at. It just depends. It's obviously an option. I'm not saying the Texans are going to go out and get him, but it's an option if that's the case. If you decide to steer away from what you have in the with the tight end position now, it's just a guy to look at. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the speed. I don't know if y'all saw, there was a game, I want to say against Wake Forest. He reached top speed of 21.8 miles per hour.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Twitter.
Tight end, 251 pounds, 6'4", reaching 21. You know how many NFL players reached that? Only 6. And he was faster than Nico Collins.
That's pretty good, right?
That's pretty good.
So since you've seen more of him than we have, I guess I have a question in that regard.
Sure.
How would you rate him as a blocker? Because with Nick Caley's offense, like especially with that Rams offense, everyone has to block. And I think that may be one reason why they move away from Schultz, because he's not a blocker.
It's not a blocker.
Not just skill and technique, it's just effort.
Yeah.
You're not giving effort. I could see them possibly moving on from him. How would you rate Arroyo as a blocker?
He was rated pretty decent at the Senior Bowl. Better than what he had been in the season. He's really good for zone blocking. So that's something to look at, of course. So he got a pretty decent rating on that. So I don't know the exact number, but from what I understood, it was a pretty good he did pretty decent in the blocking. It wasn't like we talked about George Kittle or Kate Stover, how they weren't good coming out of the as far as what they did in college. They weren't good blockers. They were but Arroyo is, I could tell you this, he's better than Kittle and Cade Stover at blocking. So that's obviously an improvement already. Um, I think it's a long shot though that the Texans would go for Arroyo, but teams like the Broncos, the Colts, Chargers, there's teams that they're really looking forward to getting their hands on a tight end. So I could see those teams really looking at Arroyo, but for the Texans, I don't think that they would go and get him. But you never know. That's the
I
thing. You
mean,
never know.
we really gotta wait and see with this,
Yeah.
right? Like he just got appointed for OC,
Mhm.
and there, like you said, there's still a lot of time
There's a
between
lot of
now
time.
between
Mhm.
now and the start of next season. We got the draft coming up, the off season, like free agents, trades. I feel like with Schultz, his first season in Texas, in Houston, I thought he was very good. Um, and it was during that season where, like, I feel like CJ had more time in the pocket, the plates would develop a little bit better, and he was able to find his targets. I feel like this last season he didn't get that much of a chance, and maybe that contributed to Schultz just not having the best offensive output this year.
I mean, that doesn't excuse the lack of effort, though.
The lack of effort on the blocking side of the thing is it's
Not even
100%
just the
on
blocking,
Schultz.
even
That is
on
100% on Schultz.
even with the route running, like we saw it in multiple games where he just even Tyler Miller pointed out, he just gives up on plays, like,
Yes.
and
Yes.
plays are coming to
Well,
him.
because a lot of the time, like you like if you're a tight end, you run your route, you look back, and your quarterback has already got
Hey, look,
dudes on him.
When
It's
he was
like at that
targeted,
point.
but
he was
also
and he was
but-
just getting on routes.
But I feel like there's still trades to be made. There's still
Yes.
the draft to happen. Will the Texans go for a tight end? I feel like they
It's a little
might
bit more
just
of a
run it
reach for
back
me.
with Schultz. I feel like there's more
Yeah.
like important positions of need
Mhm.
for this Texans team before they decide to
Mhm.
look at skill position like tight end. Um, but you never know. Even within the season, you could always make a trade during the season. So I feel like they run it back with Schultz, but I am excited to see if maybe this guy comes in and maybe Schultz, gets a little bit of
Right.
an energy boost, right? Like
Mhm.
revitalized, because maybe Schultz just didn't like the way Slowick
I mean,
ran the
the
play.
way they would mismatch and they would put him against Chris Jones for goodness sake. Like they would line up. That's the thing too.
Yeah.
Like it all depends
But
on like
definitely
what the
the
team-
lack of effort on the blocking side of it.
Oh yeah,
he needs to
100%.
he needs to get his head around the fact that he's gonna have to block at times.
And
You know,
Rios, to answer
and
your
a tight end
question,
coach as an offensive coordinator, he's gonna like if he's as much of a perfectionist and no nonsense as people and the media says he is, then Schultz is gonna have to adapt real quick.
and Rios, to answer your question, dude, better. I don't feel like I gave you enough on that one. He excels at the zone blocking scheme.
Okay.
So that's where it's at. He excels at that, and those one-on-one coverages, he wins them just about every single time.
Nice.
And it's basically a really tall wide receiver. If you think about it, he could be that hybrid wide receiver tight end mix. A lot of people
He's
were
kind of
comparing
similar
him.
to like Reverend Jordan then.
Yeah, kind of in
Kind of
that point, but he's a little bit beefier. That's the thing. So some people were comparing him to Zach Ertz a lot too. So,
Oh, okay.
but with the speed of a wide receiver.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah.
Well, speaking of blocking, one thing we haven't really touched on too much is how is this wide receiver room going to shape up? Because if you look at the Rams, those guys, they have to block. Like Puka
They do.
Nacua is a good blocker. Cooper Kupp, good blocker. Like all those guys, they block. And I think on this team, Nico, he doesn't.
He can hold his own.
But other than that, like I don't really see like a good
There's-
blocker in these other wide
Correct.
receivers that's on the roster. So I'm really curious to see how this wide receiver room shapes out. Because
Yeah.
I think a good thing to emulate would be what Buffalo did. Like they have guys that not big names, but they do the roles and they are great blockers.
Yeah, I
With
feel like
fundamental football.
I feel like
Fundamentals.
offensively, the biggest question mark for the Texans this offseason is going to be the wide receiver room
Mhm.
and the offensive line. I feel like those are the
Yeah.
biggest question marks offensively going into it. Um,
I'll add one safety. You can't.
That's
well,
true.
defensively,
true.
the
You're right.
safeties, maybe another D tackle on there.
Defensive line, yeah, somebody at the line.
But offensively, like the wide receiver room is so bare bone at the,
Yeah, dude.
as of right
I-
now. Like there's still no plans on bringing Dix back. It doesn't look like
Well,
it.
Well, Houston's stressing. He put out a good article, and they made some valid points. So they have until next week to, either resign him or take a $16 million cap hit. And someone put out an article saying that if you resign to say a 2-year deal for 8 million season, that alleviates that cap hit. So letting him walk for nothing and taking a $16 million cap hit.
Yeah, and if they bring him back, I mean, I don't think Diggs is a blocker, but he still gives you something offensively. So it's just, I feel like they're gonna have to lean on the draft for that this offseason. I don't think they trade for anybody. I don't think they're gonna bring any other big free agents in the wide receiver room. I think they lean on the draft, and I'm excited to see what that's gonna look like.
Honestly, I'm expecting them to trade up in the first round because there's a lot of
possibility.
There's a lot of areas of need that are available in that in the teams, so they could possibly trade up and not have to give up too much to move up spots to get, because there's some defensive tackles that may fall, and if Tyler Warren's lasts to like pick 15, I'm on the phone like, hey,
what do you think happens with like Mechie and Hutchinson and all those guys? Do you think
they're gonna compete?
Do you think they get cut eventually, or do you think they use them as straight pieces for something like?
So I think so with Cooper Kupp being on there, and then obviously now Deebo Samuel. Now I'm not saying that the Texans need to go out and get Deebo or anything like that. I'm just saying that because now you have guys
similar offense, and they're
similar offense. Yeah, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel. You could, if the Texans do feel the need to, hey, maybe we call one of these veteran wide receivers up, why not? If they're beneficial for the offense, why not? So that's what I'm saying. There's so many things that could do. Last week, last week when I was with Rios, I told them we were talking about Xavier Restrepo coming out the draft also that could fall in line with that. If they don't want to spend cap money on a veteran receiver. That's another option.
Does Deebo feel like a Texan?
Possibly.
I think for the right price. I think with the trade, they're going to have to restructure his contract.
Definitely.
It could be something similar to what the Texans did with Stephon Diggs. Basically void the other years, guarantee everything for this upcoming season, and have him play on basically like the final year of your contract type of like Stephon Diggs did.
Yeah, so there's options though. That's the thing, and then we've Garrett Wilson also. That's another thing. That's
I think with Aaron Rodgers leaving and them also moving away from Devontae Adams, I think they're really gonna
try to keep him. Then
they're gonna do the best try to keep Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. So there's options right. Yeah, there's just options now. That's the thing. There's options right now, and there's going to be more options probably coming in with trades and things like that, and. It just depends. Right now, it's just, I guess the best way to put it is just way too early to tell. But if the Texans do keep their draft picks the way they are, I could see them again going in for the interior lineman position. Yeah. If they keep it this way, if they don't decide to make, and then I'm thinking Booker from Alabama is the main guy they're looking at. If they keep it this way, because that's a heck of an interior lineman, SEC player, which is what Nick Caserio loves to have in his offense. Alabama connection right there with DeMeco Ryans. It just makes sense to me at this point,
I completely agree with Carlos on that one.
Yeah, it's just like it just depends. It just depends.
Watching the Super Bowl game, but the Eagles just ran right through those offensive linemen. Really got to shore up the trenches,
and it's exciting. Like this, I know football season is over, but now focusing on all the possible moves and the possible changes that your team can make, this is the exciting part, after the playoffs. We can speculate on all that, and the Texans did what all the fans wanted them to do. They changed the offensive coordinator, so they're moving in. Maybe are they moving into the right direction? We don't know, but they're moving into a different direction, which is what
is different.
So a little bit of grace from the fan base, just because, like you said, we saw what the problem was.
And we addressed it.
But at least it was finally addressed.
Yeah, it was addressed, and that's what the fans want. And hopefully, next season it's going to be an upgrade from what we saw this year.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for us this week. So a few changes that may come along the way. I feel like this is the end of season 1 of Bring on the Blitz. So we will be coming back on more on a regular basis once like you start getting into probably training camp and things like that. However, that doesn't mean that we can't have like a few bonus episodes here and there for breaking news, breaking Texans news, and things like that. If there's any more trades that come up, and more things that come along the way from here, then obviously we'll do those emergency shows or whatever that include the breaking news and our thoughts on all that. So for right now, this is the end of season 1 of Bring on the Blitz podcast. Please follow us on our X account right there at B Blitz Pod. Same thing for our Instagram account and our YouTube channel. Of course, is brought up by R Esquina. Follow the R Esquina at the Instagram account at our Esquina. Of course, the X account as well at R Esquina. Good stuff happening right there. A few articles that I'm going to bring out, and of course, also what I want to say is that Rios and our boy Mario have a show every week about the Rockets. It's called In the Paint Pod, and it's about the Rockets. Pretty good stuff. Follow them up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well at In the Paint Cast right there, and of course follow them on their X account at In the Paint Cast as well. Some great stuff. If you're a Rockets fan, it's a great time to start watching Rios and Mario. They're really good at talking. I'm just there to listen, so they're pretty good.
Especially ending that 5-game losing streak. Because
about time.
I was about to run into the like, no more, no mas.
Yeah.
There you go. And of course, you might see us later though during the season, during the off season. We might be heading into a little bit of football, soccer, of course, and with a new show. So stay tuned for more details. And that's going to be it for season 1 of Bring on the Blitz. Thank you, gentlemen, as always, for all that. And we'll see y'all when we see y'all.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Next time. Looks like next time we come on, like I'm fully bald.
I mean, you're almost there.
Yeah, I'm almost there. Shut up.
You're almost there, bro. Might as well.
All right, guys. See y'all for season 2. Peace.
Ciao, ciao.